This is the 18 Strong Podcast with Jeff Pellizzero, episode number 45.
Welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast, where you get direct access to the world's greatest experts on training harder, practicing smarter, and playing better golf. Now, here's your host, Jeff Pellizzero.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Pellizzero, golf fitness professional and physical therapist. And I can't believe that we're closing in on the 45th episode of the 18 Strong Podcast. It's almost been a full year of episodes, one a week. So if you haven't been a listener to the 18 Strong Podcast so far, we've got a ton of content. Go back and listen. We have had some incredible guests on the show already, and we've got a lot more great guests coming up. And I'm very grateful for the quality of people that have come on the show and been willing to share their stories, share their information, their knowledge, and hopefully you guys are getting a lot out of these episodes. I know that I've learned a ton in these 45 episodes. So I promise to keep coming with a lot of great guests in the future, and if you have any suggestions, please, of course, let me know. And speaking of our guests, today's featured coach is Martin Chuck, and many of you will probably recognize the name Martin Chuck from Revolution Golf, which obviously we've mentioned many times on the show. We've had several of the guys from Revolution Golf on the 18 Strong Podcast already, Justin Tupper, Don Saladino, and Martin is one of their featured coaches, and from what I've seen, he's one of the best coaches that I've come across, and his style just really resonates with me. He's very laid back, but at the same time, he's very results driven, and you'll see that in his videos that he uses a lot of TrackMan technology, and he's great with the camera and showing slow-mos and different things that really apply to every golfer's game. And so if you haven't watched any of Martin's videos, I really encourage you to do so. And I was really excited to get Martin on the show. I've been conversing back and forth with him for a while. I know he's very busy doing a lot of golf schools. And so when he finally decided or was finally able to come on the show, my dad has also become a big fan of his. And so it was pretty cool because I asked Martin, I had an idea like, hey, would you mind taking a look at one of my dad's swings? I thought he would find that pretty cool to have Martin look at his swing, and Martin said sure, and so he analyzed my dad's swing, and just this past week before Martin and I got on the line, I was working in the gym. We've got a couple hockey players to come in and work with my partner Crash at the gym, and Ben Bishop from the Tampa Bay Lightning is one of those players, the starting goalie for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and he's a huge golf nut, plays a ton of golf, and him and his buddy Chris Weidman were in there, and had me kind of looking at their swings, and so I had the idea, hey, why don't we get Bish's swing on film and see if Martin would analyze it. And so this is going to be a little different on the podcast because, I'm going to have some video on the website for you guys. Martin was, again, kind enough to provide some analysis, drawing some lines and talking about some different things. So you guys will be able to see two very different swings. Ben Bishop, who is 6'7", he's a professional athlete, has tons of power. So you'll see his swing and some of the suggestions that Martin has for him. And then you're also going to see my dad's swing, who he's a 61-year-old, very athletic guy. But you'll see some of the different issues that he has. And I know that there are a lot of the same issues that some of you guys are struggling with out there. And so Martin's advice and suggestions, and he gives some drills that are very good to help overcome some of those different things. So we've got a lot of content in this episode. Martin provides a ton of information, but don't forget to go over to the website, 18strong.com/Martin_Chuck, CHUCK, or just search for Martin in the search bar and you'll find it. But he's got some great suggestions on what makes a good ball striker, and then has also some great drills to help you achieve some more successful and repetitive ball striking in your own game. So enjoy this episode with Martin Chuck, and I'll catch you on the other side. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us on the 18 Strong Podcast. We've got a great guest today, Martin Chuck. Martin, thanks for coming on the show today.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be on. I appreciate you inviting me.
Absolutely. As we were talking before we got the recording going, I've seen a lot of your videos and instruction on Revolution Golf, and have really loved your videos. And most recently, after doing an interview with your buddy Justin Tupper on Revolution Golf, my dad was introduced to the whole website and really kind of gravitated towards you as the instructor that he, really kind of resonated with and has learned a lot from. And so this is really kind of cool that I get a chance to talk to you. We're actually going to look at one of my dad's swings on here, which is a little different for the show. But before we get into all that, I want to introduce you to the audience, to the 18 Strong listeners. So if you could give a little background on you, your playing history, the Tour Striker Golf Academy, and then, your work with Revolution Golf and where we are today.
Sure. So 46 years old. I grew up in Toronto, Canada, and it was kind of neat. I was around a couple interesting people in the golf industry, a famous ball striker named Mo Norman, who a lot of people have heard of.
Of course.
My mentor specifically as a coach was a fellow named George Knudsen, and growing up young guy with the influence of those two was really, really special. I had a pretty good junior career, and that led to a scholarship in the U.S. I played at New Mexico State University for 4 years, had a good time there, and turned pro right after that and played for a few years on the Canadian Tour and on the Nationwide Tour. I really didn't, set the world on fire as a player. I had a good time at that level, but there was guys a lot better than I was, but it was fun to play at that level anyway. And then I got invited to be a head pro at a nice place in Palm Desert, California by Palm Springs, and I took the job at 26 years old and was a club pro for many, many years, 16 years managing clubs and teaching people and, the ladies club and the men's club and all the things that are associated with a country club. And had a few interesting jobs within that industry. And then, as a teacher of members, my mild frustrations as a teacher to say, man, I wish I had this to help somebody feel this differently. And that, that's always been my mindset. And I've always been tinkering with gizmos, and that led to developing the Tour Striker Training Club, which was a thought, back in 2006, and kind of stumbled along with the whole patent process and getting attorneys involved, and eventually an infomercial, and we had a very, very good luck selling that product to people and helping a lot of golfers understand impact a little differently and have a tool to actually train with that didn't let them cheat impact as much. Normal golf clubs, Jeff, tend to let you do that. Mm-hmm. My goal with the Tour Striker was to build a club that held you accountable for impact and got you in a little bit different position that put you more into a likeness of the better strikers versus some of the homemade stuff you might see in the range. Not to say that that's bad, it's just different. And then that progressed into leaving the club pro business, just being a teacher full-time, running a golf school, traveling around doing the golf schools. Right now I was in Canada for a month doing golf schools. Had a great time with a great friend of mine in Toronto doing that. And then I'll be in the Midwest a little bit, and we're actually going to be doing 2 schools in in Birmingham, England, and back to Phoenix this fall to get cranking again for all winter long there.
Nice. And so is that kind of your home base in Phoenix, Arizona?
It is. My wife and 2 young kids. We live in Chandler, Arizona, kind of suburbia, and I work at a nice place called The Raven, and I've got 3 great assistants, and we run a Thursday, Friday, Saturday golf school pretty much every weekend, all fall, winter, spring. In Phoenix, when it gets too warm, we kind of take our road show, get on the road with it, and just have fun and helping golfers try to develop their game and get a little bit better.
Cool. So how have you found that model is working? I mean, obviously it's working very well, doing more of the golf academy, the golf school, as opposed to, your traditional, when a lot of people think of golf lessons, they think going to see your club pro once a week, twice a week, once a month. How have the golf academies been different?
What it is it's an immersion. So everybody says to me, God, I'm terrible. I'm not ready for your academy. And I say, no, you're exactly ready for my academy. Or if you're really good, you're really ready for my academy, because there's 4 coaches. I'm the lead coach. I've got 3 assistants. We've got you under a microscope for 3 days. So ultimately we identify what the issue is, and every student's different. Whether somebody's a newbie and they're working on grip stance, posture, alignment, how they walk into a golf ball, the routine, whatever, or if they're a high-level player and they've got some little hitch in their downswing, or they present the club in such a way that gives them an undesirable ball flight, whatever it is, you've got 3 days of immersion on that issue. Okay, and a 1 hour golf lesson is great, but it's not immersion, and it's not that intensive work that can really actually create a bit of a behavioral pattern. A 1 hour lesson's fine. You go, you get a little bit of insight, you have a good time, you catch up a little bit, you hit some balls, and then you're done. Then typically that student goes away back to work, back to their daily life. They're not grinding for 3 days. And when I say grinding, I don't want to scare people. It's not like I'm militant. But in a fun environment, we've got you for 3 days, 8 a.m. for breakfast. We wrap up at 5. There's on-course analysis. We go take you out in the course to see if you can actually apply it in the field. When there's a lake in the way, or there's out of bounds looming, or whatever it is, and then we'll take you back to the range. So there's that back and forth relationship. That 1, this is the opportunity. This is what we have identified. 2, can you apply it? 3, do you understand it? So that when you leave us, when you're on your own and you're doing your own practice plan, quietly on your range in middle of Canada or United States somewhere, or we've had people visit from all over the world. Do you understand it at a higher level, and can you do it? And that's our goal. Increase the enjoyment of it. Increase the level of well-struck shots versus poorly struck shots. I mean, that's what I do.
Yeah, I think that sounds amazing. Being able to really take your time, focus, kind of shut out the rest of the noisy world that we normally live in, and really practice and get those good repetitions, especially with somebody looking over your shoulder saying, yes, this is right, no, this is wrong, do it this way, and try these different things, as opposed to, many times we go out to the range and we just kind of guess our way through our practice sessions.
Right. And that's, again, self-development or internal dialogue is wonderful, but it sure is nice when you're steered a certain direction. Like I don't mandate anybody do exactly what I want them to do. What I'll do is I'll show them. I'll say, okay, here's where you are. And we use a ton of technology to help identify things, because the reason the technology is helpful, Jeff, is that I don't want somebody to necessarily have to believe me. I want them to, if they want to believe me, great. But I also want to back it up with fact. So we use a TrackMan. We have 6 degrees of motion analysis. There's a lot of data that, depending on the student, if a student's a newbie, maybe I don't throw data at them. If there's somebody like me who's kind of stubborn, who's always holds a teacher in contempt, because one of the qualities of being a good player is being stubborn, and because you have to believe in yourself, and so you want to be able to go down the road on your own volition, right? So when you're struggling, it's like, okay, who's this Martin Chuck guy? He says that this is what's happening during my golf swing. Who is he? What does he know? Well, I know they're coming to me because they bought into my style, and maybe they watch me online and they like that. But I also like to back it up with something measurable that we can track. So say, for example, you're a really good player and you present too much in set-up path and you hook the ball. Well, let's say your average is 10 or 12 degrees of in set-up path, and that produces too much of a face-to-path deviation. You hook the ball too much. Or you could flip it around for a new person who slices it too much. Well, if you show an improvement of 4 or 5 degrees in one day, it may still hook, but you're way better. So as long as you can, we always joke, if you can measure it, you can manage it. So depending on the student, if we measure it quite a bit, then they always feel like, okay, I'm working in the right direction. They feel more upbeat about their work, and they press on. If they don't know that they're getting better, then they may just feel frustrated and not feel like they're going anywhere. So we always want to give them direction and have them be able to kind of measure their modification and their change, and hopefully that changes the success they want.
That's something that I've noticed in your videos coming from Revolution Golf, is you do a great job of breaking down and simplifying some of these different terms and different things that happen in the golf swing, but then taking the TrackMan and showing us the numbers and breaking down the numbers too, because that stuff can be very complicated and confusing when you look at it. But you take some of the simple things, the most important numbers, show us why they mean what they mean, and how you can tell that you're making progress or not making progress. How did you, or when did you start working with Revolution Golf? How did that come about?
It was really neat. It was the infomercial for the Tour Striker Training Club. My original invention, but it's the one everybody knows me for. We had an infomercial. Gary McCord was the spokesman. It ran for 2 years. When that started to soften, when sales started to just basically plateau, we looked for other avenues. And one of my neighbors in Bend, Oregon, the last place I was a club professional general manager, over a beer one night, he said, "Hey, I was just at a marketing kind of a convention, and I met this neat guy named Justin Tupper, and I think you two guys would hit it off." And I didn't know who Justin was, and then the fella had mentioned Don Trahan, a coach from the Southeast, and I'd met DJ somewhere in my travels, and sure enough, it dawned on me, okay, this fella Justin is the person that's really promoting Don Trahan. So then I thought, okay, yeah, that would be an interesting introduction. Well, sure enough, he connected us, and we got to talking about the potential of training products, and then he'd seen some of my just kind of homegrown YouTube videos that he liked. The next thing you know, it led to an agreement to where I was going to be one of his contributing coaches, and it's been a great thing for me. I've had a blast. They're great guys. Justin's a great guy. He's an extreme golf nerd, a very good player in his own right. His partner Dean on the West Coast. You got Justin on the East, Dean on the West. Dean's another extreme golf nerd. I mean, these two guys love golf easily as much as I do, if not more. And now they're in this business of, they've got this fruitful business of disseminating information, and products and so forth, and it's just a blast. So I'm just thrilled to be part of it.
Yeah, it's such a great website, and Justin has really been so gracious to me and helping me with some of the online stuff, and just giving me some advice with 18 Strong. So big appreciation to Justin. All right, I want to do something a little different on the podcast today than we've done before. And
Sure.
You and I were conversing kind of back and forth, and I had an idea to send you a couple swings of two clients, friends. So the first one is my dad, who I mentioned is a big fan of yours and loves your stuff. And so I think he's going to get a kick out of you kind of analyzing his swing. And the second is a client that comes into our gym, Elevated Performance in St. Louis, and works with primarily with my partner, John, or we call him Crash at the gym. And his name is Ben Bishop from the Tampa Bay Lightning. Hopefully a lot of you guys watched the Stanley Cup this past year.
Absolutely. By the way, my first love was hockey, not golf. I still play men's league. I'm a hockey junkie.
That's right, and you're from Canada. I knew that there was a hockey connection with you, right. And I've seen some of your posts. You guys won the championship this past year, I think, right?
Men's league, we sure did. Yeah.
So I thought it'd be cool to get Ben's swing on film today. I just got it this morning, and I sent it over to you. And so I know that it's going to be a little difficult for the audience because you guys are listening, and you're not going to be able to see the swings. We will have them on the website. Martin was kind enough to do a little analysis on the videos as well, so we'll post that up. But Martin, if you could, let's take a look at Ben's swing first, and if you could just kind of describe what you saw in his swing, and then maybe one or two suggestions that you would have for him and somebody that kind of struggles with the same things that you're seeing in his swing.
So for the listeners out there, first thing to remember, Ben Bishop is a stud athlete. He's one of the best goaltenders in professional hockey. He's 6'7", ridiculous. I mean, I'd love to shoot on him, but I don't know where there's room to score.
Right.
But anyway. So when I look at him, so here's a really tall fella, and he accommodates for his height with to me, which is a little bit overbending in the knees. First thing I do with Ben is I would get his legs. I would raise his belt line. In other words, imagine giving a guy a wedgie. If I got to paint some pictures for the listeners, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If he pulled up his belt line a little bit, his knees would lose a little bit of flex, and he's in kind of an extreme flat back posture. If you look at a lot of tour players, there's just a little bit more softness in the upper back and eye line. So I'd have his eye line be down just a fraction more. When I film good players from face on, high level tour players, and they have a ball cap on, you can't really see their face. You can see maybe the bottom of their chin. So Ben's head's a bit up. His back is a little probably overdone in the extreme flatness department. He could actually round his shoulders a tick and lengthen his legs, and he'd raise the handle of the club a tiny bit. Now those are small postural changes that I think will help him, because when I watch him, it looks as though, and I'm just kind of scrolling to the listeners, I'm just kind of scrolling through his swing right now. Very, very centered, very stable and strong against the lower body. A very nice pressure shift to the lead side. And, a lot of good things. The video is a little on the grainy side, so I really can't catch the club face to see, precisely what's happening. At the top of his swing, the face to me appears a little bit open, so he looks like he's in a bit of a fade bias, that it would be tough to get this face aiming to the left of a club path. So to me, it looks like he's got some sort of hand save manipulation hit draws. Now, if I was coaching him, I'd work on his postural stuff a little bit and get him a bit more organized there. But I'd spend a lot of time on his right hand because I don't think his right hand hold is as refined as it could be. His right thumb straight down the shaft. It doesn't look like the club really rests in the index knuckle as well as it could. I'd also bring in his heels in a little closer, which in essence would flare his feet fractionally. So, depending on what his goals were, first off, Jeff, I'd always just say, hey, Ben, do you want to hit draws? Do you want to hit fades? What type of shots do you want? That as a teacher, then I would understand more what his goals were, and I could coach him a little bit more effectively knowing that. Right now, he looks like the lead wrist is maybe a fraction on the weak side, right hand's on the weak side. It looks like he's going to hit some high balls, like a little too high space balls, fade tendency, or if he overrolls his forearms, it's going to be a kind of a quick left thing because the club face would be hitting the outside half of the ball too much. For the viewers, he's a right-handed golfer, I failed to mention. But, great athlete, super strong in the core. You guys in the gym are doing a great job with him because this guy his ability to create a very, very powerful motion against very, very stable legs. I can see a lot, way more good than bad. I'm just being critical because that's what, as a coach, people pay me to do.
Sure.
So, that's really all I have to say to Ben. I want to get Ben on the ice and see if I can tune him up a bit. But he'd probably stop me cold. But on the golf course, it's funny. You're in St. Louis. I'll be in St. Louis next week. I should pop by.
Yeah.
But that's what I'd like to see with him. Just those subtleties. Your dad's got more of the classic stuff that I see from the people that come see me. Typically, my demographic is either really good younger guys like tour player, mini tour player, or guys that are north of 50 that are, wanting to play better golf as they enjoy some time in retirement or just able to carve more time because they don't have to work as much. So why don't we turn it over to your father for the moment? Sound good?
Perfect.
So your dad, I've only got a down the line view of your dad, it appears, in these videos. Did you send me a face on too, or just
no? We just I just happened to take this when we were playing golf a couple weeks ago, and so it's the only one that I got. But then I had the bright idea to send it over to you.
No, I'm glad you did. So first thing I'd do is I'd show your father his backswing tends to go way too around. So his first parallel, basically to the listeners, as a golf coach, we talk about different positions that all golf coaches can relate to when discussing students. So your father, in his first parallel, his club is too far. If you can imagine yourself as a golfer, his club's pointing too far behind him when the club is parallel to the ground. It's pointing behind, like instead of pointing parallel to the target line, Jeff, his club's pointing well behind him. So he's got more around. He doesn't have equal parts of up.
Okay.
So I would train his left wrist to hinge more vertically first. So right now he kind of whips it inside as opposed to he needs that left wrist of his to start to hinge the club upward to better match the club's path to the around behavior that he's got right now. And then it continues around, so the club gets very, very deep stuck behind him. So from here, he's in a position where he's got to do a lot of hand save. Your father's in good shape. He looks as though his core and structure is pretty solid. Now his first move down is a response to probably a lot of slicing. So his weight's on his right foot. His club comes back. His weight stays on his right foot. When his club's coming down, the face is wide open, and he's backing up away from it. And when people back up away from the target, their hips never move forward enough so that their swing circle, their hula hoop, if you will, that 12-foot hula hoop that would comprise the swinging club head, that gets turned to the left aggressively. So when you have something wiping across the golf ball, you're going to create a side spin. And in this case, your father's is such that he's going to slice a lot of golf balls hanging back on his trail foot and kind of spinning out, if you will. So with your dad, I would start him off with teaching him how to hinge his left wrist upward earlier, okay? I'd work on that first parallel so that if he stopped when the club's parallel to the ground, the club and the hands would feel more inside his club head from his visual perspective, And then I would teach him how to hit just a strong little 7-iron punch shot, where his body could go into from a forward flex, meaning the address flex, into kind of a pelvis relocated over his lead foot, in his case his left foot, tall, where his belt buckle is actually feels like it's the closest thing to the target. So right now he kind of spins out of it, and he's got that wipey fade look. So, and it's funny, in the swing you send, he kind of let go of it. It sort of looked like he was mildly disgusted in the shot. But that's what I would do. I mean, I see this swing all the time, and when I explain flexion, extension, and turn, then people start to get it. I might use different analogies to help them understand face and path, like a corner kick in soccer, for example, how somebody can visualize how things work based on their experiences in other sports, perhaps tennis, perhaps soccer. Could be a lot of different things to link a behavior to golf that might help somebody, understand it and move along faster.
Yeah, that's great because, my dad, he is 61 years old, but very athletic, played, Division I soccer back in the day.
I didn't know that, but he looks like a stud.
Yeah, I mean, he's a great athlete, and it's funny because, we talk a lot about the things that are going on in his swing, and not that I'm a swing instructor by any means, but we could tell he's always hanging back on that right foot, and we'll get him doing some practice swings, and it looks great, and then you get that ball in front of him, and he tends to spin out and do exactly the things that you're talking about, which I think is something very very common with a lot of average golfers. That you walk down the driving range, you see a lot of those guys backing away from the ball onto their right foot, and so I think that's why I definitely wanted to get this video to you and have it where the audience can go and see it. And again, you guys will be able to see this on Martin's show notes page on the 18 Strong website, where you can see the video and you can see exactly the things that he's talking about. But I felt like it was such a common swing fault that a lot of people will be able to get some good things out of that, because it probably applies to a lot of people's swings.
Well, your father, the fact he's a soccer player, it's a pretty simple notion for him to bend a soccer ball.
Yes.
So if he was on a corner kick and he had to make the ball go from right to left, it would be easy for him to use the instep of assuming he kicks with his right foot, use the instep of his right foot, to impart a spin to where eventually the ball would curve once it's up in the air. Well, his foot's traveling one way, the instep's pointing a different way. The difference between where the instep starts the ball and the direction the foot's traveling, that's what imparts that, in the case of a draw, a counterclockwise spin on the ball. Well, he would do that easily, with a soccer ball. Now, with a golf club, his brain's kind of working differently, right? He's trying to make his club path go to the left aggressively fast so his ball doesn't go to the right. That's actually the adding gas to the fire, because spinning out of it makes the club path go to the left even quicker. That's going to friction the ball. That'd be like him trying to make a corner kick, assuming he's going to hook it, but then hitting it with the outstep of his right foot and fading it into the midfield to where some opposing team player has a breakaway kind of thing.
Right.
So he's looking at it opposite, and that's what we see in the golf school all the time. And through small drills and things, and through technology, I would say your dad hits down on it a lot, and his swing path is left 12 or 13 or more degrees. And through small little wins with little drills, he can see immediate changes and different feelings that produce rightward path. How to get that foot of his to go to the right so he can hook a soccer ball, or how to get your body to move onto a lead foot and extend so the club path doesn't zip across outside in so bad. So those are the things that are challenging but fun as a coach.
Is there one drill that you can think of that would be a good one for somebody who does this, and hope maybe even one that where you have a video that I could pull over and put on the...
Most definitely. I'll send you a link to, all the Revolution Golf ones are, I would say I'm talking to 80% of the people on Revolution Golf are your father. That's the demo, boom, right? So most of the stuff I talk about is really to kind of help a guy who's stuck on his trail foot, who, naturally hits a ball to the right, whether it slices or not, depends on, on where it's hitting the face and the face to path, blah, blah, blah. But, I'll pinpoint one of the links from Revolution Golf, and I'll send it to you, and you can put it in the notes for this interview. and I think I'll probably put two in, because one's kind of a starter, and then one, is a bit more elaborate.
Perfect. So I want to talk a little bit more. I know we talked about the Tour Striker Club,
Sure.
and I haven't had a chance to hit one of those, and I'm very curious to hit one and see what that feels like. Would you suggest for somebody? I know you've got is it the wedge or a wedge or 9-iron, and then I know you have a 7-iron.
Pitching wedge, and we've got a 7-iron.
Pitching wedge and 7-iron.
Yeah.
Would you suggest?
Easier.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'd say the wedge is a little easier to get started with. Like, ultimately, what people have to realize is that when good players hit a golf ball, the club is in a position of trying to catch up. Okay, and while it's in that condition of catching up, it's in what's called the lagging condition, LAG, lag. Okay, people look at that as some mystical thing. Really, a golf club goes from a condition of being in front of you, hanging down from your arms. As we make a backswing, it goes into some sort of an L shape, angled L shape, so that we can have some energy on the way down. That L shape has to kind of extend back into an inline condition to a degree. Well, good players, the golf ball gets collected before the club completely gets into an inline condition. So the shaft is somewhat leaning on the golf ball. What newbies do, or what people that are uninitiated with golf do, is they're worried about making the ball go up. They're trying to help it go up. And when you get into that mindset, the shaft gets too vertical too fast, and might even lean backwards a little bit, and you're going to hit the ground behind the ball too much. When you do hit it solidly, you have too much loft in the face, the ball goes high and doesn't go very far. So the Tour Striker, I designed the club head in such a way that intuitively you realize that the only way to make it work is to do it sort of correct. I mean, can you cheat it? Yeah, I've seen people cheat it on fluffy lies or, very fluffy range mats. But in general, it's going to help you learn how to use a golf club properly faster than if you just did it yourself. Now, when I'm giving a lesson, do I use it? Absolutely not, because I'm there hands-on helping somebody. But when they're on their own practicing, people don't even know you're using it because it looks like a golf club. It's just a golf club that's got a designed head that, makes you look and go, okay, well, anyway, this is going to work as if I do this. And that this is something that good players do.
Yeah, just looking at it online, you can tell the shape of the club head and that it looks like it'd be difficult to hit, but I can totally see how, it's just going to kind of force you to get into that position. And sometimes I feel like we overthink things, we overanalyze things, and sometimes you just got to go out there and feel it out and bang a few balls. And something like that where you can only pretty much do it right one way seems like it would be a very, very beneficial tool. And you guys have a lot of other products and different things over on tourstriker.com where people can go and have a couple different learning aids. But the one that I really like and I've started watching is the Tour Striker training program, which is your 6-disc set. We actually just got this from my dad for Father's Day, so he's about ready to dig in on it. Awesome. But kind of explain that a little bit and, the basic premise of the CD or the DVD set.
Well, Justin reached out. It's a couple years old now. So he reached out and said, "Hey, I think it'd be great if we took all your thoughts and put them into a package, and I think it'd be helpful if we put something out there." And I said, "Sure, let's do it." And basically, what I did was I've been teaching golf almost 30 years now, which is crazy. And through the 30 years, I hope you learn a few things that work and some things that don't. Then the language you use to express yourself changes and gets more simple. And, so as simply as I can, I explained how a golf club can strike a golf ball effectively, some of the geometry required. And I say geometry, big word, but really I use a hula hoop to show it. I mean, it couldn't be more simple than that. And how a hula hoop can touch the ground and where it touches the ground. And the hula hoop basically describes where the swinging club head travels. And then how the body works, from, how you bend over to dress to how you stand up through a golf ball. And some of the myths of, lifting your head and all that stuff that, your Uncle Bob wants, God bless him, he's the 85 shooting guy. He's played a ton of golf. 85 is as good as he's going to get. And yet he tries to teach somebody how to play golf. And he tells them all the bad information that he learned that basically limited his ability to only shoot 85. Now, some people might think, man, 85 is great. But if you take a reasonable athlete and you give them the right information, look out. They can be way better than that. So I try to take the information I know that works, make it as simple as I can. And, through it's a lot of information, 6 DVDs, but we've broken it down into some, practice plan video, a short game video, a driver video, what I call the modern golf swing video, faults and fixes, that kind of thing. And it's been great. I mean, it's been well received. We've sold, I don't know how many thousands, 20,000 copies of it worldwide now. And it's been great.
I watched part of the modern golf swing one just a couple of days ago, and just you using the hula hoop. I've got a hula hoop at work now where I've been showing some different guys, just to get a general understanding of what the club's doing, how it's going around your body, where it actually touches the ground as opposed to where most people think it does, which was just that little visual. If you could explain that a little bit, because that kind of changed my mind as far as how I visualize a golf club hitting the ball and then taking some of that turf.
Yeah. So I think if you went to a random driving range and just plunked down in the middle of America somewhere and said, where does the club touch the ground? I think a lot of people would just think the ball. That's where that's the bottom of the golf swing. Well, the reality is the bottom of the golf swing is actually on the target side of the ball, 3 or 4 inches. Now, that's not a steep angle of attack. It's a very shallow angle of attack. But if people really have a good idea where the bottom of their swing is, they're going to get better a lot faster. So with a hula hoop, and when you show somebody, you put a hula hoop, and if you hold it vertically like a Ferris wheel, right, and then you tip it over slowly into the degrees of like that an iron is designed on, like a 7 iron is about 60 degrees. So you take it from the Ferris wheel and you take it to 60, and then you put a golf ball down in the middle bottom of that. That's not where we hit it. We actually hit the ball prior to the bottom, and that presents it presents an inside-out strike on a ball. Well, when you give people clean visuals and they go, wow, that makes sense. I didn't look like that before. Now you've opened up a door of learning for them that they're just better faster. So if they don't know, they're going to be stuck in trying to make something work that it's like a square peg in a round hole. It won't work. Now, you can jam that sucker in there eventually and chip the edges of the square peg off and make it work. But if you have the information and you have the right pictures in your head, it just, all this stuff comes together faster, more clarity, and you'll be a better player. And that's the bottom line.
It's funny. That's pretty much the exact same reaction that I had was, I never really thought of it that way. But, intuitively, I thought I kind of knew the way a club was coming into a ball, but never really pictured it the way that you described it and when you had the visual of the hula hoop. So that was kind of one of those aha moments to me, and it really made sense for a lot of different reasons. All right, Martin, before we go, I have a couple questions that I like to ask pretty much every guest that comes on the show.
Fire away.
First one is, are you a Caddyshack or Happy Gilmore fan?
Caddyshack.
All right. Second one is, the title 18 Strong is the website, the podcast. I kind of thought of that one day, just kind of thinking about, what am I trying to do with my golfers? I'm trying to make them stronger in the gym. 18 Strong sounds very, very logical to me. But I like to get an idea of what's your first thought when you hear the term 18 Strong? 18
Strong. I mean, when I saw that, I thought, okay, that's interesting. I mean, to me, it's being prepared for a round of golf. I'll tell you the saddest thing, as I have, my demographic is, for whatever reason, I appeal to people, 50 to 86. And I'll say 86 because last year I had an 86-year-old come to my 3 days golf school, and he was a stud, and that was amazing. And I had an 82-year-old guy who I said, what are you, about 70? Before I could finish, he looked at me and proudly said 82. And I went, really? He goes, yep, still do 150 push-ups a day. And I said, baloney, drop and give me 10. He did. 10 good ones. So to me, the human body, okay, like Gary Player is an icon to me. And being prepared as a human is being prepared as an athlete, never mind a golfer. Just be prepared. Take care of your body. It's the only one you get. And 18 Strong to me is be prepared as an athlete. Take care of yourself. Be committed every day with what you eat and how you and what you put in your body. And when you play golf, you're just going to be better longer. And it's just so meaningful because I come back to the sad thing is I will get people that come to me and they want to get better, and that's great. But I'm telling you, physically, they've let themselves go so far down a wrong road that I can help them, but it's always kind of a band-aided approach. Now, we get from A to B, but we got to go a lot of different little ways to get there. Unfortunately, when I get a guy who's sort of in shape and taking care of himself and has a reasonable range of motion and some strength and flexibility, as a coach, it's like, all right, let's go. Let's bring it on. Let's get it done. Now you get a guy that can't really touch his toes anymore. He's stiff as anything, and yet he wants to hit at 240 like his buddies or 250. Good luck. So you got to – it starts with guys like you. You got to – I always try to get my people into some sort of physical fitness, whether it's yoga or in the gym with a reputable trainer or Pilates or whatever it is. I mean, it's so crucial to being a healthy human, and then you're going to play better golf. So that's a big deal.
I'm glad you brought that up because obviously this is a kind of a fitness-based golf website, but there are so many times when guys want to get better. They have great intentions of getting better, but they don't realize that sometimes it's the physical limitations that are hindering them from doing what the swing coach or the instructor wants them to do. And I know that you preach a lot of, getting your body right, and you've done a lot of work with our buddy Don Saladino, who has also been a guest on the show. And Don talks a lot about just, not necessarily even having to be golf fit, but just moving better, just more functionally fit, functionally flexible, strong, and just that is simply going to make your golf game better, regardless of whether you're specifically training a golf motion or movement pattern. But just being able to move better makes you that much of a better golfer.
Oh, for sure.
All right, I know you guys have done a bunch of stuff with Revolution Golf. You guys always have something going on with Tour Striker. What are some of the exciting projects that you have coming up in the next couple of months or so?
Well, now it's kind of neat. I'm doing a couple golf schools in England, which I'm excited that there's, folks over there that want me to come over and do golf schools. I'm really excited. I'm going to take the family on a short vacay prior to, and then I'll be there with one of my assistants grinding away with a neat host professional named Alistair Davies at a place called Forest of Arden, which is in Birmingham. And so that's exciting for me, and I'm starting to get invited by different PGA groups from around the world that want to understand coaching and some of the marketing things that I do that have helped. Because let's face it, a lot of coaching. You got to be a good coach, but you got to know how to market yourself and present yourself. And I think I can help a lot of people with that. Some of the younger pros out there, so I'm excited to do that, mentor those people because I had great mentors. And naturally, I'm still tinkering with inventions. I've got a few things coming out. They'll be out soon. One that's great that just came out actually. We call the Power Impact Pro. It's in conjunction with Don Saladino. We're still developing the training program along with it, but it's on my website. It's a surgical tubing golf grip with a few different ways to attach it, and different ways to if you're the executive traveler, you just want to build an impact feel, or you want to go through a mild workout, or you don't quite know the plane of your golf swing. There's just a bunch of ways to use that tool to stretch, to feel, to kind of retrain motion patterns. And so Don and I put that together. I'm excited to launch that. It's already soft launch now, but we'll get that rolling out in the next probably 30, 60 days. I do have some available on my site now. The Smart Ball is a gizmo that I came up with about a year ago that's been well received by tour players all around the world and students. That's been a really, really successful product for me. And Darren Clark uses it, a bunch of Charles Howell, tons of tour players, female and male. So that's nice when my products are appreciated by the best players too. So always pleased with that, and just enjoy doing what I do. I get up and get to do what I love every day, which is be around the game of golf and help fellow golf nerds get better.
Can't ask for much more than that.
Yeah.
All right, and any last pieces of advice for the audience, and then if you could tell them where they can find you.
You can always find me on tourstriker.com. My website's pretty simple, and there's tons of free content on there. My email is just martin@tourstriker.com. And, I don't have a bunch of people. You email me, I'll get back to you. And let's see what else. Fun stuff coming up. Just looking forward to playing a little golf myself and taking a little time off and teaching too many golfers, not enjoying the game enough myself. So that's what's on the road for me in the next little bit. And other than that, I wish you well with your business, and commend you for doing this kind of thing and making people more aware of fitness and golf and how it lends to just better performance overall.
Well, thank you. I very much appreciate that, and really, really appreciate you coming on the show. Like I said, I've been a fan of your videos, and I can honestly say that I've learned a lot. I didn't grow up playing golf myself, and so I've learned a lot from your instruction, and you really have kind of changed my dad's game the way that he's played. I played with him a couple times this past year, and the big difference from 2 years ago, and he attributes a lot of that just to some of the stuff that you've given him on the website. So really an honor to have you on the show, and definitely look forward to catching up with you in the future.
Well, Dynamite, thanks for having me on.
You bet. Thanks, Martin. Okay, so like I said, this episode was a little different than normal because we had some pieces in there where obviously you couldn't see what we were talking about, but I think Martin gave a very good description of both Ben's swing and my dad's swing and some of the things that they were struggling with. But I definitely encourage you to go over to the website and search for Martin, or you'll see his episode pop right up if you're watching this in pretty close to present time. And you'll see the different swings. You'll see exactly what he's talking about, Ben's posture, his grip, his stance, some of those different things. And then looking at my dad's swing, you're going to see, how he really kind of wraps around his body. And as Martin said, he'd like to see him a little steeper in his backswing, and how he kind of falls back onto his right side when striking a ball. And I know for a fact that if we can get him, my dad that is, to shift his weight onto his left side, he's going to see a huge amount of distance in his tee ball. And his irons are actually pretty darn good. His short game is excellent, but need a little work off the tee and definitely needs some distance so we can play the same tee boxes. But I thought Martin gave some great advice, some great tips, and as I mentioned, he's got some drills that he sent over to me that I have linked up in the show notes page. And then, all of his Tour Striker training aids, all that stuff, Martin has done an incredible job utilizing not just his teaching techniques and his videos, but also creating some different tools that you guys can use at home to really start working on some of this stuff when you're not under the tutelage of a golf pro. So definitely check out some of the Tour Striker training aids. We've got it all linked up in the show notes page. So if you go over and you look at the videos, you can then click through directly over to Tour Striker and check out that stuff too. So again, I have everything in the show notes page, where you can find Martin, how you can get in touch with him if you want. And hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I know I learned a ton. Martin's a great guy. He's been very generous with his time, and I look forward to catching up with you guys next week with another great episode of the 18 Strong Podcast. Train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.
Thanks for listening to the 18 Strong Podcast at www.18strong.com. And remember, train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.